There are 3 mistakes that I have made while running my agency that as a beginner, you should try to avoid. Number 1, don't quit your job. So one of the first business lessons that I've learned is with any business, if you have a current job or your current lifestyle that you're living, you don't want to just abandon that lifestyle to start and grow a company. Meaning you don't cut off the lifeline that's been paying all the bills at the current time for your business. Now, I know that sounds great and it sounds motivational, but let me tell you through experience, that is not the way you want it to go. If I could go back in time to when I was 21 years old or 22 years old, I think it was when I first got that entrepreneur bug, I wouldn't just immediately just quit my job and try to grow a company. I know in today's world it sounds super motivational and inspiring, but let me tell you firsthand from experience, that is not the way you want to do things. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, Ramon, if you're saying that's not the way to do things, what's the correct way to do things? Well, the correct way to do it would be to work your 9 to 5, and then from 5 to 9, use those hours to grow your business. So that way, as you continue to repeat that schedule over a period of time, the money that you're producing from your business that you're doing on the side can now be used to reinvest and grow, and eventually over a long enough time horizon, be used to replace your 9 to 5. So let's just use a more thorough example. Let's just say I'm working a insurance sales job, and it's a typical your 9 to 5 salary insurance job, nothing crazy. And you want to, let's just say, grow a 7-figure roofing company or a 7-figure, what's a better example? Let's just use a marketing company. You want to grow a 7-figure marketing company. If my 9 to 5 that I'm using to sell insurance is already paying the bills, obviously, we don't want to cut off that lifeline. So what I can do is from the hours of 5 to 9 when I get home, I can use those hours to send any cold DMs, any cold emails, any cold calling, and use those hours thoroughly to grow the agency from the hours of 5 to 9. Now, I know it may start off slow because you're not putting an adequate amount of hours into scale, but hey, you book a few meetings a week, you do it over the course of long enough time, eventually it will all work out. And you land, let's just say, one client that pays you $1,500 a month. Now you've been, using the hours of 5 to 9 over a span of months to land a client that's paying you $1,500 to $2,500 a month. Now that just supplemented a little bit of your income, and you can use that check that you just collected to reinvest back into your agency. So now you can use that to hire more people to do more cold calls for you. You can use that $2,500 to hire a bigger team to send more cold emails for you. Next thing you know, you're using that money from the first client that you signed with your agency to reinvest. Now your calendar between the hours of 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. is completely booked with Zoom calls to scale the agency, and you're making $2,500 per month from each new client that you sign, and you're signing a few clients a month. Now, the money that you're making from your marketing agency that you've been working on for the last 6 months from 5 to 9 is making a passive $10,000 per month because you've been using all the money you've been making to reinvest without using that money to spend on your personal life. And now you can eventually, since the money you're making from the agency is just as much money as you're making from your insurance job, you now can quit that job and go all in on the agency. So that's a good rule of thumb that you should follow. And if I could rewind the clock, I definitely wouldn't just quit my job and then start something like a marketing agency, because the job is the main thing in the lifeline that is putting food on the table. You don't just want to cut that off to start a business, because the money you make, to be honest, and I wish I knew this sooner, the money you're making in the first year that you're in business isn't your money. That's the business's money. The money that you're getting needs to be used to reinvest so you can grow. You don't just take that money, start living off it and buying new cars, buying a better place, or buying a watch. All that stuff's not important. The first year, every single dollar that you make in the business is meant to be used to reinvest. So that's exactly why you don't just quit your job to start a business. It just doesn't make sense. It can cause more problems, lead you into debt, and lead you into a much, much harder place and make it it's just like playing a game on hard mode when you don't need to. So with all that to be said, don't just quit your job to try to be inspirational and start a business, no matter what model it is. Hopefully my example was good. I kind of did it off the top of my head. But yeah, that's my advice. And if I could change that, I would. But hey, now I'm in a position to where I can talk about it from experience. So number 2, cash flow management. So cash flow management in the business is something that I definitely struggled with in the beginning, because I didn't have that discipline to know, okay, how do I allocate money to this specific thing, and how do I allocate money to my personal life? Well, to answer the question that I've corrected through experience is, again, if you have a good base, a good, let's just say, job that's outside of the business To keep it simple, all you need to do is keep whatever extra money that you're making in the business inside the business. It's very, very simple. And I don't really have like a long topic to go on about it because I've now like simplified it down so simple enough to where if you're one of those people who are struggling with managing cash flow on business expenses and personal expenses, just think of it like this. Whatever money you're making from your business stays in it until you've reinvested enough to where you know you've hit all the bullet points you need to check off the list as far as reinvesting, rather be making more hires, increasing your ad spend, increasing your websites or funnel conversions, you name it. After all those investments have been made, whatever's left over for that, you need to take out obviously a percentage for taxes and maybe take a small percentage, like maybe 30 or 40% to yourself that you pay. But you want to at least try to invest as much as you can in the beginning. Then after investments, then you can reevaluate how much you can pay yourself. So that's like a good tip, I guess I would have done, and I wish I knew sooner when it comes to managing cash flow in the business. And if you're just starting out, hopefully you can follow that advice and learn from my mistakes. Lastly, the third thing I want to talk about is sticking to whatever plan that you have to free yourself from your job for a long enough time horizon. So what I mean by that is every single plan or idea that you have can work, and it does sound great, but the problem is people change the course way too much. And that's something that I've struggled with for the longest time. I would have a super good idea or a super good plan that I know, like, man, if I just do this, I can make a lot of money, or so-and-so's crushing it in this other business model. Maybe I could do this business model and try this other business model. For example, I can maybe start an insurance agency, and then I can also, start a drop shipping store on the side. Then I can also start a marketing agency on the side, and I'm trying to do all three things. And next thing you know, you're doing 3 different businesses and all of them are plateaued at the same mark because your attention's divided between 3 things. And next thing you know, you've wasted a year giving 3 business models your divided attention, and none of them can scale because you're all over the place. Like, you can't be the best in your industry giving it your divided attention. So what I mean by that, in a deeper example, is take your top person in whatever industry you're in, take the best person in that industry, and you'll notice one thing about them. They specialize in that one industry. They're not in 30 different places. And it's one thing to say like, hey, like you got a business that's crushing it and it's ripping and it pretty much runs itself without taking up any of your time. And then you start another business, that's another topic. But when you're starting out and you want to be an expert, you can't become an expert at 3 different things all at the same time. You have to focus on one thing and stick with that one thing for a long enough time horizon. And one of the best quotes that I've heard is from Alex Hormozi, is entrepreneurship is literally just a game of the last man standing. So who's going to quit first? Because everybody thinks they're leaving money on the table if they're not starting 50 different companies all at the same time. But in reality, the real leaving money on the table is dividing your attention between 50 different companies. Not the fact that you're only focusing on one thing. Focusing on one thing and being really, really good at one thing is where the gold is. For example, when you go see a doctor, you go see, let's just say you have a issue going on with your brain. You go see a brain specialist. If you have an issue with your heart, you go see someone who specializes in the heart. You don't just go see a doctor and they're a jack of all trades. They can service you for anything. That's not how it works. You go see the doctor that specializes in that specific issue that you're having. And it's the same thing with business. People don't want to go to the guy who's a jack of all trades. They want to go to the guy who's the specialist in that specific niche who can solve that specific problem. So that's why sticking to your plan and sticking to that one thing for a long enough time horizon can give you a more increased results inside your business, and is very transparent in order to scale in 2025. So that's all I have for today's video. Hopefully you found some value and hopefully I made enough sense. Let me know if you guys want me to dive deeper in future videos, but that's all I got for today, and I'll see you in next week's video.